Hey, what's up, party people? Welcome to another exciting week of SJU. Happy Monday, Danielle, and happy Monday, Eric. Thank you for joining me as we delve into why Netflix is dead forever and will never come back, and it's done. I exaggerate, but it did take a bit of a dip last week, and we haven't had a chance to talk about it yet. So we're going to really dive into Netflix, and then that's our only news story. So please keep the questions coming in the chat. So we'll have something to talk about in the back half of the show. But we begin with Netflix. There's a bit of, you know what I hate is high expectations. And the people on the street, on the Wall Street said that Netflix was going to add about 2.5 million subscribers this time around. And instead, they lost 200,000. That's way off. That's way off. And shares tumbled. In response, they were down 35% one day and then 8% the day after that. Yeah, so there's just I'm just going to kind of pile on Netflix for a second because there's a whole lot of bad news or news that kind of makes that sound even worse, because it also came out that every episode of Stranger Things season 4 cost $30 million.
Ooh. You know how many everything all the time, everywhere, all at once you could make with that money?
Oh my God. Yeah. Well, so there's that. Also, pour one out for the Bright sequel. The Bright sequel, which they say is unrelated to Will Smith's Oscars incident. Yeah, we just decided to cancel our movie with the biggest movie star that was one of the biggest successes we had for some unrelated incident to the fact that he slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars and everyone's mad at him. So there's that. They also started clamping down on password sharing.
And that is where the problem is.
Well, yeah. So I guess let's open it up. Where do you think Netflix is fumbling the bag here? Is it because of the crackdowns, or is it because of the content, or both? Danielle, what do you think?
No, I mean, for me, I think it's definitely like they were the only business in town for forever. They were like, we're taking over Blockbuster, like F Blockbuster. Oh, don't make those hand motions. But like, no, they're like,
we're Flickster now.
We're flicking it now. Like, so yeah, they that was the idea, was, you know, and I remember the DVD days. Ugh, old baby. But yeah, so that was the idea. And then once everyone was like, oh, most of the content that is keeping Netflix going is my content. So I'm just gonna like move The Office over and move over all of these things that are very popular on Netflix. And then once they do that, it creates a change. And I think it's a combination of that. And then when they do these original series, and I don't know, because they don't show us the numbers, so who knows like why they're making these decisions. But there is that now cliche of like, oh, you get 3 seasons and you're done. It's like, well, people get really invested in these, you know? And so I think it's like the three-piece of getting rid of these long-running series, which were one of the reasons why people were watching Netflix, getting rid of their new series that were really popular after only letting them develop for like 3 seasons, which in my opinion, 3 to 4 seasons is when a series like hits its stride and gets really good. And then 3 being like, you can't share your password anymore. And it's like, well,
well, then I'm not going to watch Netflix. Eric, what's your take on the dive that it's that Netflix is seeing?
Yeah, it's interesting. We get, look, obviously, of course, they are still like #1 by far. It's not like they're going away, but I think they're vulnerable for the first time. You know, for so long they were like just like comfort food, like everything's on Netflix. Lay on my couch and watch Netflix. I'll find something on Netflix, and it's a lot of the things Danielle just mentioned, including losing is like shows like The Office and Friends that were just like shows I like to have on in the background that just play. Losing those, but then also they have a real, I think, brand problem. The fact that they have clearly been quantity over quality. There's a lot of great stuff on Netflix, like, and they're still making like all the Mike Flanagan's horror stuff they make is great, and Russian Doll is great, and Cobra Kai is great, and I look forward to Stranger Things season 4. But when you put out as much as they do week to week, and so much of it is crap, it makes it a lot harder to think of them as like making quality stuff, even if it's there, because it's just too much. And all these other streaming services are still like even though HBO Max, also has, HBO Max has like a lot more broader stuff than HBO did, but I still think it feels like there's at least quality control. Like Netflix is just like, you get everything on the air and we no notes. And I know that there's a pluses and minuses to all that stuff, but I do think it started to hurt them because now it's harder and harder to think of the good stuff. Even though I realize if you really sat down, you could probably make a pretty long list, but it's perception, right? And look at Apple, who makes very few shows, has no catalog titles, but almost all their shows are very well received. And then it just starts to become that perception of like, oh yeah, like I pay $5 for Apple a month and I know I'm going to get some really good shows, feeling like I'm spending up to 20 for Netflix and just there's too much.
Right.
So I think
you only have so many hours in the day to watch television. You might as well pick and choose among things that you at least think might be good rather than whatever the algorithm farted out for you. It's like,
and they're doing, Lord bless them, everyone does this thing where it's like, look, The Circle really worked because it was like that point in time where it's like, oh, well, they can't leave their apartment to talk to people. Neither can I. So like, I identify with this and like making friends and stuff. And they keep chugging out like these reality series, and we like them like that. And like, yo, I got into Sexy Beasts, weird furry stuff. I got into it, but it's not, it's not a sustainable brand. And when you start getting to that point where you're just like, I'm going to start chugging out like these reality shows, I think for when they started doing original content, it seemed like they were very clear about being like, oh, these are going to be prestige series. And like, yo, I'm not saying like you're garbage if you like the reality stuff they're doing. I like it, but I do think it is a departure, and there is so much reality on all of these different things. And I mean, let's be real, all reality is the same. You can put a furry mask on it, you can send it to Comic-Con, you can put it in a room by itself. It's all literally the same, and we love it and we adore it, but
well, I agree with everything you're saying, both of you. Their library has been totally poached by these other companies where you used to be able to watch Marvel movies on Netflix. You used to be able to watch Friends. You used to be able to watch a million things because they didn't have their own streaming service that was competing with them. And I think that the one thing that you guys haven't mentioned is it's the economy, stupid. It's that people are broke as shit. And they're like, well, I can only afford 2 or 3. Netflix makes it the easiest of all of them to buy a month of Netflix, binge watch the series that you like because they still are on the binge release model. They don't string you along like Disney Plus or Apple or even HBO Max. And then you cancel it. And then you come back when there's something that you want to watch later. I think they're really a victim of sticking to the model that got them there. I understand why, because I still like to binge things, but they've lost the kind of cultural spotlight because they dump everything in one weekend. You watch it all and you talk about it for a day and then you're on to the next thing.
Like everything, literally, if you watch something on Netflix and it's one of those things where it comes out like all in one day, yo, if you're not in the conversation within the first like week and a half, like that's none. Like no one's talking about it anymore. There isn't like a sustained thing. And I won't be a hater, but there are like series that I can mention where when you look back, it's like, I don't know that deserved my engagement on other platforms, but I'm like, you know what? I sure did every week come back to watch it, even though I don't know if those however many strangers who are perfect strangers to each other is worth this investment I made in our time. But you know what? I'm gonna watch it because like whereas like with a lot of binge stuff, I think most of us have that thing where it's like, look, if I'm not into it, 4 episodes in, like I'm ditching it, where it's like, I don't know where it's gonna go because it's weekly. It is a change. And I like it. I like having time to like actually digest stuff. There was a time I was really into binging, but I think it was different when we were all doing cable. And now it's like, no, I kind of like having the time to parse things and actually have a conversation.
Especially when there's 7 other streaming services all coming out with stuff at the same time.
I think we're seeing the pendulum swing back. Yeah, it's like I understand there are bingers, ride or die bingers who are like, I don't want to watch a show until the whole season's out. And I get that. But I think more and more you are seeing, just corporately speaking, it is starting to bite them in the ass because it is like, wow, these other shows more engagement, more people talking about them, just bringing them up, suggesting them, even if Russian Doll is great, which it is. Season 2 premiered Friday, and no one's going to be talking about season 2 a week from now.
They're trying now. To be clear, they're trying the half and half model.
They are
right,
trying with Stranger Things. Yeah,
but it's still. You could still do what Spencer's talking about. You just do it once in May and once in July.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You can do, as long as you have a month in between. That's an extra month of your money, baby.
Right.
And you mentioned Russian Doll. I would be remiss if I didn't say that they lost almost 1 million subscribers in Russia over this time period for political reasons. So
they shut down the service in Russia.
Yeah. That is a huge chunk of falling short. But even if you take out, I think it's 700,000. Even if you take that out, there's still over 1 million under projections. So bad times.
The other thing though that Danielle mentioned that I do think is an important fact is like how quick they are to cancel these days. And a lot of the faucets kind of opened last week, and there was some people were spilling the tea after this happened. So some writers and showrunners and TV writers started to talk more about what it's like to work with Netflix these days and frustrations they have. And some of it we kind of heard, we were getting more details, including why they cancel shows so quickly, which is so purely economic, and the algorithm we don't usually tend to add more after season 3, so just end it. But also we have to start paying. Typically in Hollywood, people get raises around season 3 and 4 if a show is deemed successful. And Netflix has just been cutthroat and been like, no, we'll just end the show and maybe we'll put that actor in a different show. But what hurt after time, again, for a while it was comfort food. People just kept the Netflix subscription. But over time, it starts to hurt the brand loyalty because people are like, I don't trust you. It becomes like Boxx, the network a decade ago, where it's like, I don't trust you because you cancel everything good you put on. And now Netflix, it's catch-22 because people say, I'm not going to watch this show you're talking about till I hear they've gotten renewed for another season. And then Netflix renews it cancels it 3 weeks after they premiere it, like Cowboy Bebop. No time to grow. We already made that decision. So
cancel culture. It's gone too far.
Look, they got rid of the vein in Snickers. You're coming next.
Wait, what?
Oh, so Snickers was threatening to get rid of, that little vein they have that goes through.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. I'm trying
to cancel the Snickers.
Well, they were going
the throbbing Snickers vein is gone.
They were going to, and then Twitter went crazy. And
save the vein?
They
saved the vein?
They
Keep
saved
Snickers
the vein.
engorged.
Sounds like they're saving the vein. And I know that there was a popular controversial news host who there's a meme going around where him saying something about it and calling it cancel culture. I don't know if that's true, so I can't make that joke.
But I don't want a smooth Snickers. I don't know. Am I gonna get canceled for saying I don't want to eat a smooth Snickers?
I like my Snickers veiny.
Keep it turgid, people. Okay, sorry, I'm just using all the grossest words I know. Let's talk about Netflix. So you wake up and you body swapped with who is it? Reed Hastings, Ted Saray. Yeah, you body swapped with Reed Hastings, Danielle. A, what's the first thing you do non-Netflix related, and then B, what do you do to save Netflix?
Reed Hastings. What are their pronouns?
I think it's him. He seems like a salt and pepper haired gentleman.
So I get jumped into the body of an old white man.
Yeah,
older.
I like a middle age. Yeah,
I can't even express the things I would do with number one because they are not movie or entertainment related. Oh, but it would be a fun day for Danielle Radford. Oh man. Oh yikes! All that money? Yeah. Second thing that I would do, honestly, I would invest heavily in the original programming that people seem to like. At least get stuff to 5 seasons. And I know that the reason that we do 5 seasons is because of syndication, and it's not an issue in there. But at least we are. I know that a lot of us, we have acclimated to the more like BBC British model where it's like it used to be everything had 22 episodes. And then eventually stuff started getting pared down to 10 to 12. And we were like, oh, wait, that's more story. That's not a bad thing. But I do think in America, we're still very much because the way now that we have truncated the way that we tell stories, we are still very much in the vein of yo, it's gonna get real good in like this series and this series and this series. I think that's just the way that America works. I think that like if you're gonna buy something, and I'm not saying you have to commit to 5 series, I'm saying if there is no good logical reason for it not to go 2 more series. Now, granted, 30 million an episode is a real good reason to not go like
That's
whatever.
insane. That's insanity.
It's also like it's, you know, they had stuff like One Day of a Time and like other things where it's like, yeah, it's just like a studio and like people, you know, walking in and out of doors. You could just make more of those. Stop spending money on all of these comedy specials, which I love the youths and I love comedy more than anything. Obviously, I'm a stand-up comic. I love it. Like pay people their money, but also recognize that that's you got to be like you got to figure out how to because they spent all of these money all these monies who am I they spent all of this money on all of these huge deals, and I do think, and again I want stand-ups to get paid and all that stuff, so like don't at me, but I do think that they paid for a lot of these huge deals, and they're waiting for them to have a return. And I get that because a lot of money was spent on this, a lot of money was spent on trying to get Oscars and all of that stuff. And hey, again, I love all of these like weird reality shows, but if you invest in your long term, like people who will watch a series for 6 seasons, those are going to be the people who continue to and like you said, it's just like I mean, I hate to be like, oh, Disney good, Netflix bad. But the thing that they're doing very well is they give you the series, they give you like a couple of months to cool, or like a month to cool off, 3 weeks to cool off, and then they give you another series where it's like, well, it doesn't make any sense to cancel now. I've already paid, and it's only 3 weeks between one and the other that are really good. You know, I talk too much. I'm sorry.
No. I was just
very
thinking
funny.
about you're saying, oh, regarding the stand-up thing is they just announced that they gave Dave Chappelle 4 more stand-up specials. And that I'm sure is like a couple episodes of Stranger Things right there. That's not cheap.
And stand-up comedy specials are supposed to be cheap. Like that's the whole reason why Comedy Central did half-hour
It's a person on
specials.
a stage. You walk back and forth. You ask about like
shoot them like it's a YouTube video. Like you shoot 4 of them at a time in the same night, and then you get it's supposed to be overhead.
You just change clothes, and like maybe it's like the person was already on tour anyway, so you just do a bunch of different theaters. You have them like wear the same clothes for some, and then you're doing a tour while you're doing this, and it's not, you know, again, I don't begrudge anyone making their money, but it's also like y'all are spending a lot of money considering that most people are absorbing their stand-up comedy these days, not in these long specials, but in clips on YouTube, like YouTube
TikTok,
and Spotify and TikTok and those things.
All right, Eric, now you're Reed Hastings.
Sorry.
What's your 3-point plan to right the ship?
It's weird because it's like, again, Netflix, the pros and cons, because it's like, you know, people were pointing out, it's like, look, Netflix, all the shows they make means that they've employed a lot of people, and that's great. Yes. But it still seems like there needs to be some quality control, and that sometimes less is more. And that, I know they can't go in, they can't promise we're going to make this show 5 to 7 seasons because the showrunner, that's his plan. Yes. But I think they have to step back, and, you know, a few years ago, they could afford to be cutthroat because they were the only game in town. And they really were like, we're destroying cable. Everything's here. And then, as you know, you mentioned, it's like once their competitors rose up and they lost all of those big name titles. I mean, now they can't make decisions on algorithm alone. You know, like you mentioned One Day at a Time, Danielle, and it's like a show that I'm sure for them, the viewership was relatively low. They decided, I can't remember if they aired 2 or 3 seasons before it had that brief run on cable, but they aired 2 or 3 seasons. Then they look at their algorithm and say, well, it's peaked. It's not going to get any more viewers. So screw it, canceled. Sometimes you have to step away from the machines, guys. And again, it's looking at what this is doing to your perception overall when people now just think of you as the ones who will cancel. Yep. And you can't just count on them still being there. So I think there does need to be more quality control. I think I've mentioned this before, but like John Landgraf, the head of FX, who obviously are a brand known for a lot of quality, has mentioned, and then he said this quote like 4 or 5 years ago, so it's only gotten worse. He said how he couldn't fathom having as many originals as Netflix because he watches every episode of FX shows to kind of be the guy who's like, let's make sure this is working for our brand. no one at Ted Sarandos doesn't have time to watch every episode of every.
Nobody does. Yeah.
No.
So maybe you need.
My list is so long.
They need a
Yeah.
Kevin Feige. That's what everyone says now.
Oh God,
They need
everyone needs a Feige.
A Feige type or a hybrid, a hybrid Feige, a Feige hybrid.
Or maybe you need a room of Feiges if they're going to have that much stuff.
Right, maybe a whole gaggle of Feiges.
A flock of Feiges.
My
A murder of Feiges.
I have a real question for you guys. Is every other streaming service going to be going through this exact same thing in 10 years and we're just judging Netflix because of timing?
No, I don't think so, because Netflix is spending the most. And they also I guess I was going to say they those other streaming services don't have as much competition, but I guess they all are competing with each other now. So that's a good point. But Ryan, I wanted to get
ahead is all I'm saying.
I don't think
Ryan,
anyone.
Ryan, I wanted to be Ted. Hold on, I wanted to be Ted Sarandos.
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Or Reed. Be Reed.
Yes, please.
Reed. Yeah. Here's what you do. I feel bad for them because all the library content is really snatched up. Like you can't. I mean, it comes up for auction, every 3-5 years or whatever. So that would be good. Like instead of renewing Stranger Things, you could try to shake out the couch cushions and buy The Office back. I mean, that wouldn't be a bad use of your money, even if it is $500 million. But I think that they have the business they can be in and have proven that they want to be in is movie stars. They want to be the place where Ryan Gosling makes his next movie. All the Ryans, including O'Toole,
all the Ryans,
the Cruises, the Ryans, the Rocks, etc. But when they do that, they cut them these enormous checks, and then they clearly don't have any money left over or care for the quality of the film itself. But what they have are all these great reality formats. So you get Gal Gadot, Ryan Reynolds, The Rock. You've got Flores Lava.
At least one Chris.
I would rather watch the Ryans and the Chris's do Flores Lava or Love is Blind than I would watching 10 Red Notices.
Oh my God. Can you imagine?
Do movie star reality shows.
They kept teasing in one episode of The Circle, or one season, I will not spoil it, but they kept teasing that there was going to be a celebrity on there, and we all knew it wasn't going to be true. But what if one day it was like, no, I actually am Ryan Reynolds?
Yeah. What if one day? Exactly. It's Jake Gyllenhaal on The Circle or whatever. I think that's their only way out. Personally, they've been boxed in. They're screwed.
I like that plan because, I got a press release last week for I'm glancing at it now, for a new Netflix movie starring Chris Hemsworth, Miles Teller, and Journey Smollett. And my first thought was, I bet that'll be mediocre. Now maybe I'll be wrong. But I shouldn't think that, right? I shouldn't think, wow, all those three actors got a lot of money to do.
But if you're watching them all do Nailed It, I mean, come on.
Right, exactly. So I'm in. Cooking competition. Yeah.
The celebrity. I look, the Red Nose Day celebrity version of British Bake Off is delightful.
There you go.
Delightful.
Done. All right. Once again, saved Hollywood.
Saved Hollywood.
We did it.
Sorry, Ryan. What was your actual question? I just wanted to give my.
Oh, that was my question. It was just the is Netflix 10 years ahead, and are we like picking and choosing all these things they could have done differently when it's going to happen to everyone else too?
I think it is musical chairs, and then somebody's going to be left, one or two of these Peacocks, the Paramount Pluses, the Amazons. I think the hilarious result of all of this is going to be all of them start adding free tiers with commercials, and you just become cable TV again, where you're just flipping from streaming service to streaming service with commercials.
We didn't mention that's coming, that Netflix is going to add a cheaper tier with ads.
And that's part of it.
That was, I think, when especially the online conversation kind of became, this has come full circle, Netflix is dead. And that's where I think like the Netflix is dead talk kind of came in, of just like, oh, it's just cable again. Jim One pointed out in the chat that, at least the other streaming services, those companies are also every other company. Like Disney Disney has other stuff than Disney Plus. Amazon owns us all, not actually. And then, like, other than, even HBO, they have Discovery. But that's a little bit of a different thing now with that new merger, but they're not as singularly reliant on month-by-month subscriber reports as Netflix.
Yeah, and that's always been the case. So, like, when I was the assistant manager of selling video games, that was one of the things that you recognized when, obviously, like, PlayStation came out and Xbox came out and all of those things. I mean, I'm not that old. I wasn't working when they were. But as someone who likes games, someone like Nintendo, games are all that they do. Whereas like when you have someone like a Sony who does a million things and it's like games might be fun, or like Microsoft who's like games might be fun, they don't have the same, they can afford to take more risks because they have a million other products that you're guaranteed to buy. It's the same thing with Apple, same thing with Amazon. Like they have a million things you're guaranteed to buy, so they can take risks and like make other stuff. Whereas Netflix, this is all they do. You know, y'all should have made a Game Boy. I don't know.
Well, they're trying to do that too. They're trying to
trying to
break
get
into video games
Yeah,
somehow. I'm not quite sure.
But yeah,
how it's
Ryan,
gonna
I
work.
think that yes and no is my answer to your question, because yes, Disney Plus, HBO Max, everyone, first of all, a couple will probably just fail outright, but HBO Max and Disney Plus, I think, are going to be here for the long haul. But they're going to peak. They'll eventually stop adding subscribers to, or adding them very much.
Yes.
So that will happen, but they won't have the same exact problem as Netflix, which is they're not trying to be everything to everyone and have this like Netflix was literally a few years ago, before all the other companies were during the competition, just being like, we're just going to replace everything. We're going to replace cable and network TV and movies. And that's obviously not going to happen, but they spent like it was going to happen.
Yeah.
So
I mean, that
that's their
sounds good
unique
when you go to
problem.
a bank and ask them for money, like we're going to be everything.
Right,
That's how
right.
you get them to,
Yeah.
because they've been deficit spending. They're like billions of dollars in debt. I don't think they're profitable
No, I
yet.
don't think so either. Yeah.
Not even
Yeah.
close.
Well, like these others, you know, you look at like an NBC, you look at like a, you know, you look at even Hulu. They have changed their subscriber model, but it works because they have the shows you want to see and they have a lot of the stuff you want to see. If Disney was like, hey, we want to get more subscribers, we don't know what to do. Hey, we'll add another tier where if they go back to like the lockdown model, they could even say, yo, like, we know that we usually release these movies that you love in X amount of time, but if we halved that and you paid $5 more, would you do it? And it's like, yeah, I think a lot of people would.
Yeah, they have a lot more options for
Yeah.
charging. And I'm sure the result will be we all get charged a lot more. So
Or
thank you
pay
guys for
less
watching
for
our
ads that we all
Yeah.
love. Yeah.
yeah. Thank you all for watching. I mean, the money's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah.
People work hard on these things, but we lose. So thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't yet. And let's spend a brief moment talking about a few non-Netflix questions that have trickled in. Raynard City Update Channel, going to see Unbearable, the Nicolas Cage film, which is excellent. By the way, you should totally see it.
Yes.
But what other actor would you like to see have a film modeled around their fictional persona?
John Travolta.
Or John Travolta.
Sorry, that was my first.
John Travolta just like being himself
Yes.
in a movie where he plays John Travolta. Okay.
Yes. And goes through
That'd be
all and in the
interesting.
same thing, all of the references of all of his like previous career stuff. Yes.
Well, this is the funny. You should say that should be your first go-to, because the same viewer, Raynard City, asked AMA. John Travolta's been seen in my local area, but I keep missing him. What would you do to summon John Travolta?
Sing a song from Greece? I don't know.
Oh, I think that you get a prop plane and you figure out a way to make the plane do the tune of like like in the same way that you do when you're doing compressions for someone in first aid. You just sing Staying Alive. That's a true thing. Don't trust
Yeah.
me. Look that up from people who are actual medical experts, but that is how I'm trained. And so you just have the propeller go like,
And he'll just shimmy his way over.
and he'll just show over and he'll be like, oh, does someone need chest compressions? And it's like, no, but you are needed for this movie. Like that's how you summon him.
That seems about right.
Yeah.
My answer would get me canceled. So let's move on. Adam Albert asks.
Wait, can I answer
why
that
do-
last one?
Yeah, go for it.
Well, I don't know why. I don't have a great answer here, because Nicolas Cage was like obviously a great choice for Unbearable Weight because he has such a specific public persona they could
Mhm.
pivot off of. But part of me is like, could you do it with someone like, say, The Rock, who has cultivated a very specific image and, you know, plays variations on the same role all the time? So could you do a thing like where they played themselves, but like subverted that, or, you know, kind of complete. The obvious thing to do is like, they're a complete a-hole, or they're, you know, a
Mhm.
coward. But they can have fun with that. So I'll say The Rock for now. And then I'll think
A
of
real
something.
Rock.
Oh,
would
he would
be-
love that. Yeah.
He would love
Would be
that.
good. I mean, if anyone needs the image rehab or like the self-awareness, like I can lean into it, is Jared Leto.
Oh my
So
god.
just like the unfathomable exhaustion of being Jared Leto. And it's just like him, having fun with his own interesting reputation. That would be, if I were his agent, I would have him do that.
Yeah, like it turns out he pays all those cultists to be there, like they're fake cultists.
Yeah.
And
Well, I would pitch a movie where it's the idea is a behind the scenes documentary of Jared Leto doing Jesus Christ Superstar, where he has cast himself as the lead.
And it's like a Christopher Guest like mockumentary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I would
on
watch
set is
that.
like, he's in character. You have to call him Jared. He's method acting as himself.
Good times. All right. We will end with this one, which is actually interesting. I keep forgetting about this movie, but people keep bringing it up in the comments. Adam Halbert says, why do you think there's been little promotion for Prey? That's the Predator prequel, right? It was said to come on to Hulu this summer, and all we have is a poster. That's scary because that probably means it's bad and they don't want to promote it, right?
I mean, I pray it's not bad because I'm really psyched for this movie. And I like the director a lot, Dan Trachtenberg. I really like 10 Cloverfield Lane, and I like Amber Midthunder, who stars. So I'm kind of hyped for this movie, sight unseen. I'm not too worried about it because I think they'll promote it when they're ready to promote it. And maybe it's not going to debut this summer. Maybe they just decided in fall. So I think once they announce that date, we'll get a nice amount of promotion around it. So I'm excited for it. I hope it's not bad,
Yeah.
But I'm excited for this.
I'm also not like as stressed about little promotion as I used to be. Just because like there seems to be this model now of like, oh, like we have surprises, and it doesn't mean you have surprises. But if you wait a little bit longer, like I feel like now there has been a precedent set that you can do that. The thing that always worries me is we didn't have press screenings until the day after the movie came out. Like that's the stuff that like worries me. But not a lot of promo at this point. I'm wondering if people are like following that Marvel Beyonce model where it's like, you just come out and surprise them and like maybe it's good.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Exactly. Because I think at this point, if you are an executive making a big bet on the success of a new Predator movie, you're probably going to lose your job because there's only been one good one and a couple decent, and everyone else has been terrible. So I think that they're probably, like you said, just going to throw something out there and see if people bite. And I'll be biting because, man, all I want in this world is like a Predator anthology series where it's just different eras of human technology versus the Predator.
I want Downton Abbey versus Predator.
Downton Abbey versus Predator, King Arthur versus Predator, Pirates versus Predator, etc.
If 'tis bleed, thou can kill it.
Yeah. Love it.
And that's the SJU motto. Thank you guys for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with Honest Trailer commentaries, and then again with SJU or a little Moon Knight action. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.